So if you don't know who I am, my name's Nigel Thomas. I spent the last 6 to 7 years building marketing agencies online, built 2 multi-7-figure agencies, and now in the past 12 months, I've worked one-to-one with over 300 other founders. And through all of this time, I've learned the different stages of growth. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to separate those stages of growth out for agency owners, all the way from 0 to 10K, from 10 to 30K, from 30K to 50K, from 50K to 100K, and 100K plus. All of these lessons I'm going to share, these are ones that I learned the hard way in the hope that you don't have to. So 0 to 10K is what I like to call the dirty hustle. So at this stage, what you've got to do is you've got to hustle, you've got to grind, you've got to do anything you can to get leads. Forget about work-life balance. You're going to have to be obsessed if you really want to make it. You're not going to have the experience to know who you want to work with. You're not really going to have the skill set to know how to even deliver a service. So you can either work for someone for free to get a testimonial, or you can work for them on a freelancing platform like Upwork. This is what I did to get the experience. And then obviously you can start reaching out to people, usually via cold methods of outbound, unless you have a network. So cold emailing, cold calling, cold DMing on platforms like LinkedIn. And if you do enough of them, always 3% of the market is ready to buy at any one time in any industry. All you have to do is find that 3% that really need help right now. If you can position your service as a solution, even if you might have to work for less money, remember you are building experience for the long term. And the other thing is, because you won't have the confidence or the experience, you will be doubting yourself constantly. But understand, this is normal. I went through this process. All my clients go through this process. No one escapes this process. You have to go through it, especially if it's your first business. The only way through this is you've got to believe in yourself, and you've got to make sure your actions match your ambitions. So the first few hours of your day, you've got to be reaching out constantly to find new leads. When you get them, you've really got to take care of them to make sure that you get a testimonial out. Stage 2 is 10 to 30K. And this stage, I like to call clarity through chaos. Because trust me, things are going to be very chaotic at this stage. You're not still a fully formed business. You're still going to be running around doing lots of things yourself. So this is when you need to make your first hires, because you'll start becoming the bottleneck of your business, and you want to start delegating things like admin tasks. So calendar management, responding to unnecessary messages, and getting client invoices paid. These are the things that you can start delegating, and parts of your service delivery, monotonous tasks that you could pay someone abroad maybe $3 an hour to do. You should be delegating these things. And if not, you're going to be caught up in these activities, so you won't have the time to focus on the other things that I'm about to tell you about. The next thing is, by working with a lot of clients at this stage, you'll start to figure out who you like and who you don't like. So you should monitor, you should interview your clients, the ones you love. What is it about those clients? Is it that they are easy to communicate with? Is it that they have a certain size of revenue in their business, so it's easier to get results? Is it the fact they're in a certain location? Can you work directly with the decision maker? These are all questions that you should be asking yourself. Ideally, what we want to create is what we call the ICP, Ideal Client Profile, because moving forwards, when you go through the next stages, you can identify and use your ICP as a measuring stick for who you should work with. Because if you work with everyone, you almost work with no one. The only way to get clarity and focus to really truly scale is by being more specialized, by focusing on one ideal customer profile. Once you've identified your ICP, you can then build a sales process. Why this is really important is because you want to qualify people correctly. So you've got to start saying no to people who don't fit your ICP. And with the sales process, you should have one method, ideally building out a slide deck. If you don't know how to do one of those, you can find templates online and customize it to what your customer's current situation is, and then figuring out what their desired situation is and how your service is the bridge to that gap. What you should include on this slide deck is testimonials of how you've helped previous customers, so then you can show the new ICP, the prospects that you've qualified correctly through your new sales process. This is how we get results for people like you, which means they're going to be more likely to work with you, and you can charge a higher price because you know the value you can deliver. And just as a little side note, a pro tip is constantly raising your prices as you increase the quality of your ICP. How to do that is you have to figure out how much value you provide your customer. An easy way to do this is to track the amount of revenue, if that's possible, within your business. For example, if I make someone an extra $1 million in sales and I charge them $50,000 for that, that's a pretty good return on investment, right? So you've got to track your client results and then raise the price of your service in line with the value you deliver. If you don't raise your prices in the later stages I'm going to talk about, when you start hiring more people, your costs, your operation costs will increase and you won't have enough cash in your business to support that new operational cost. So you have to raise your prices. The next thing is in stage 1, the dirty hustle, where you've been doing outbound, just going for absolutely anyone and doing it all one-to-one, you want to try and systemize your outbound. So using automation softwares, figuring out how to build lists, potentially tapping into other freelancers, so you can have a systemized way to get new deals in your pipeline on a consistent basis. Otherwise, if your clients leave, your revenue is going to be up and down constantly and you're going to be in a really emotional state. The next way to get clients, now you've started to get some results and you've started to understand how to deliver your service, is by posting content. Like I said, outbound is to get 3% of the market that are ready to buy now. The 97%, they need to be nurtured. So when they are ready to buy, they will come to you. How do you do that? You post content online. I posted content on LinkedIn and it brought in 600K in revenue in 1 year. But it took me a year of posting before that was possible. Actually, probably more like 18 months. So it's going to take time, but what you can start to do is post about how your specific processes are getting your clients results, and the more unique your solutions are, the more you stand out in the marketplace. The other thing to do is post about the client testimonials that you got from stage 1. Now you can start leveraging those testimonials in your content to attract more of those kind of customers. And then the third part to get more consistent pipeline is to start building partnerships. At this stage, you need to kind of build a community. So instead of looking for huge partners, massive companies, find people like you, agencies like you, who are at the same level, who ideally offer a complementary service. So let's say you do Facebook ads for e-commerce brands. A great partner could be an email marketing agency that offers a different service, but they work with the same kind of clients. Together, you can share strategies, share knowledge, build a friendship, support each other, hold each other accountable, and most importantly, you can refer each other business. And if you build the right partnerships with people who are growing fast and have the right mindset, further down the line in years to come, you will all be at 100K, and think about the power of that between, let's say, a little community of 5 people. And then you can even do things like supporting each other on your content. I remember when I was posting on LinkedIn, I started connecting with everyone when I had 1,000 followers. So did they. Now I have nearly 60,000 followers, and so do they. Now we've all got massive networks and we can all refer each other lots of business. So with all these new strategies you've implemented for marketing and sales, you should be in a place, even though it might take some time to implement, that you can get consistent pipeline and you can have sales calls booked in your calendar every single month. Now we move on to stage 3. This is 30K a month to 50K a month. This is what I like to call freelancer to CEO. A lot of marketing agencies claim they're the CEO of a successful marketing agency, but really they're just glorified freelancers. How do you know that? If you can't take a few days off without everything crashing and burning, you're probably a glorified freelancer. The reason I know that is because that's exactly who I was, and I stayed in that trench for way too long. So at this point, you will have freelancers working for you from stage 2, but now you need to start transitioning those people to more full-time. Now, they can still work for you on a contract basis, but what you need to make sure is they're not servicing tons of clients, because as obviously you've got more clients now, you've got more responsibility, you want to make sure the people who are working for you have focus. And yes, that means you probably need to pay them some more money. I understand this can be scary, but ultimately, if they don't have focus, they won't be able to do the quality of work you need to keep your clients. Most importantly, you won't be able to get your time back so you can focus on the more high impact stuff, which I'm going to talk about now. So now you're getting your time back, you want to start looking and analyzing your current clientele. Probably you've outgrown some of your smaller clients, and this means you need to let go of them. Once you get rid of them, even though it might be a little bit scary, you can replace that existing revenue with bigger clients who pay you more and respect you more as a successful business owner. Now, the next one's really important. This is productizing your service. Through the first two stages, you've kind of been doing things chaotically. You've probably been offering different services for different businesses, but now you've got your ICP, you should have one method, one technique, one process to get them from A to Z. Break down your service into, let's say, 6 months, and what do you have to do every single month to get your client or prospect from point A to Z, which Z is the dream outcome that they want. Then what you can do is you can outline this and show it to your team to make sure you have a system and everyone understands how they are a part of that system to get results, which means you will understand the amount of resource required to get the client results. You will understand the profit margins that you have for each of your clients. If that's consistent every single time, then I can start to forecast and my profit margins can become more predictable. Now, we kind of touched on this in stage 2, but at stage 3, it's starting to become an even bigger problem. This is when you need to step up into a CEO role. This is when you need to start delegating things like the client delivery work. You need to start getting off client calls. Understand, if you don't delegate this and you don't trust people to do the job that you were doing, you will never ever grow. And this is why most business owners stay small, especially agency owners. And understand that when you delegate things, people will make mistakes. But having it done 80% as good as you can from someone else is much better because you get your time back to focus on the higher impact activities. And over time, they will learn, and ultimately, because they have focus, they will probably be even better than you were. So now we're at stage 4, 50 to 100K a month in revenue. This is what I like to call becoming a business. Before, you might have been a glorified freelancer, things were a bit chaotic, but now you've got a lot more responsibility. You've probably got a lot more clients, you've got a lot more operational costs, and you've got a lot of team members to look after. So this is where you have to build a proper business with the proper systems to support those business functions. To stand out in a crowded marketplace, you've obviously got your ideal client profile, but you really need to start honing in on your positioning. First, understand what your prospect wants, the outcome, and then understand what your service is, your solution, and how it uniquely solves their problem. For example, I've been working with a CRO agency and his prospects, they want to spend more on ads. They don't want CRO help. So his positioning is, if you want to scale your ads faster, stop spending more on ads, fix your website. What he's done there is he's showing them their dream outcome. He's speaking to them positioning wise. This is the dream outcome you want, but here is my unique solution that no one else is talking about and separates him, that gets them to that dream outcome. And then what you want to do is you want to revamp your website. You want to revamp your social profiles, and all the content you post should be around this positioning. So when people see your name and your agency, they should associate you with that unique solution that you provide. This will help your outbound activities, this will help your content, your partnerships, and everything else, because you will stand out in a saturated market. And then we go into the next evolution of partnerships. At the time, you probably, like I said, got partnerships with other agencies at your level, but now you want to start going into wider oceans. So who else works with your ideal client profile? And probably it's going to be those bigger companies you've always wanted to work with. Tech companies, for example, in the e-commerce space, have access to a lot of money, and they also have access to a lot of clients that you want to work with. How can you build partnerships with these people? Well, obviously you can refer them business, but the other thing you can do is you can start doing marketing activities with them. For example, you could do a webinar together where they might sponsor your webinar. Why would they sponsor you? Because if you get a list of brands, then you give them that list of brands, they will sponsor you, and you can use that money for ad budget to get people to a webinar. The other thing you can do is, because you're posting content online and hopefully you're building an audience at this point, you can post about that specific tech company. This is what all the tech companies want. They want eyeballs on their products. So if you do that, it will get you in the door with their biggest decision makers, which means that when they have clients to refer out, they're looking at all the agencies they work with that they can refer business to, you will start to climb up that ladder and you will become a VIP partner. So start building those strategic alliances with the bigger companies. Now, another thing that, especially for marketers and people of sales like myself, is the financial side. I know it's boring doing your tax returns, doing the profit margins, speaking to the accountant if you have one. You have to make sure that you start building up your cash flow and you understand the margins of your agency. To give you some benchmarks, the agencies that I work with that are doing less than 100k a month, we try to aim for 80% gross margin and 40 to 50% net margin. That way, you've got enough cash coming in each month so you can build up a reserve. Where you want to get ideally is to get to 3 to 6 months cash flow. So if everything goes to shit and you lose all of your clients suddenly, then you've got enough cash flow in the bank to support all of your team and expenses for at least 3 months, ideally 6. Now, obviously you're going to have an internal team at this point, but you're probably not going to have enough budget within your agency once you looked at your finances to help you with marketing activities. So at this point, what you can do is a cheaper option and more agile. You can hire other agencies. For example, doing outbound, they might be having a cold email system. So invest money into agencies to help you. Obviously, I work one-to-one with agencies. You don't have to work with me, but find consultants that will help you in areas where you've got constraint, you've got a lot of problems. Paying for someone's time who has already been there and done it and helped other people do it is one of the fastest ways to solve your problems. Now, the last thing for becoming a business is you've got to have real systems in place. So things you want to be looking at is a CRM, a custom relationship management tool for your sales process, all of your pipelines, so you can forecast the revenue, you know where people are, you can follow up with them on time, you can start looking at historical data. Then your project management system, so all of your tasks for all of your clients are all completed on time, and everyone within your team knows what they have to do, when they have to do it, because if you fail to plan, you are planning to fail, and you'll be a chaotic mess. And then your communication, so a lot of agencies use Slack. Sticking to email is not going to cut it. You need to have a more agile communication system, whether it's in your project management system or over something like Slack. You need to make sure communication is housed properly and make sure you've got team calls on a regular basis so you can keep close contact and good feedback loops within the team. So now we come to the last stage, stage 5, and this is 100k and above. This is what I call managing to leading. At this point, you've got a system in place, you've got your ideal client profile. This is really where you need to become the leader of your business. You need to start paying more for talent. So looking across the key functions of your business, whether that be marketing and sales, operations, HR, recruitment, you need to start hiring for people in these positions. And I'm going to be honest, it's going to be a little bit scary because those people are going to demand bigger wages. But you've got to understand that if someone comes in and solves problems because they've got the experience, because they've done it before 10 times faster, you will grow 10 times faster. So if you can identify how to recruit good talent, it's probably one of the biggest arbitrages in business. Now, when you bring A players on board, they're going to expect a different kind of leadership. So you need to outline a vision at this point for your agency. Where do you want to go within the next few years? What is your mission statement? What do you care about? What do you stand for? And then you want to understand the personal goals of these A players. Where do they want to get to? And then it's your job as a leader to align their personal goals with your company's goals. So when you get to the destination, you've not burnt them out and they're not got further away from their goals, because otherwise an A player will just quit and go somewhere else. So you need to make sure you have really, really clear direction and ideally mapping out individual KPIs. KPIs are key performance indicators if you didn't know. And a specific KPI could be, let's say you bring on an account manager to help with client service delivery. And they're speaking to your clients. A great KPI for them would be extending the lifetime value of your clients, how long a client stays with your agency. So if you incentivize them to get clients to stay longer, obviously your business is going to grow more. And this is something that a lot of agencies don't focus on. They just like sales, but it's actually way better to keep clients for longer. And then you want to start getting the really, really big brands that can pay you massive retainers. In a world where AI is advancing faster than ever, and obviously the outbound is getting harder and more saturated, to get to the big business owners, ideally, you want to try and meet them in person. Something that I've been doing recently, which is really good, is hosting in-person events. So what you could do, for example, let's say you work with some e-commerce brands, you could host an e-commerce founder dinner. This way, you get to meet people in person, which builds a whole different level of trust and relationship. And otherwise you wouldn't have access to these people, and it's very hard to get them through cold outbound, for example. So now you're establishing your authority, putting your agency next to these big company names, and ideally through those face-to-face relationships you sign one or two of those clients, and then you get a massive case study which will attract loads more of those clients. Now, in terms of the marketing and sales, you want to start creating more long-term assets for your business. At this point, you've been posting content, you've been doing outbound and partnerships, but really to stand out further, you want to create assets such as email lists, like a newsletter, for example, because you can always make sales from this email list. And another thing is obviously your personal brand. At this point, you want to start getting more serious, getting on big podcasts in your industry so you can stand out as a thought leader, and potentially investing in consultants to help grow your personal brand bigger. And this is personally what I did on LinkedIn. I invested tons of time, hired consultants, and I grew my LinkedIn audience to nearly 60,000 followers, which gave me a massive advantage when I was going into conversations for sales, for partnerships, for hiring people. That's what you want to do, because the personal brand is the one asset that connects all the dots. And then lastly is to start to delegate marketing and sales. So up to this point, you didn't really need to do that. You're probably posting all the content yourself. I know I was. You're probably taking all the sales calls yourself. And these are some of the highest impact activities that you can do for your agency. So you don't really want to delegate them before this. But now you've got the resources and you need to get more time back as the leader so you can recruit people, manage array players. So now you want to start delegating your marketing. So look into hiring some SDRs or some closers to help you close sales once you've got the process built out and the systems in stage 4 for the CRM. These are things that you want to start investing in to grow the awareness of your brand, so your agency actually becomes a reputable name. It stands out as a premium agency in the market. If you're not willing to invest into your agency, it's going to be very hard to get past 100K a month and beyond. Now, at this point, obviously you're probably thinking, well, what's next? That's really up to you. What a lot of my clients do, agency owners, is they will cash flow their agency, they will systemize it, have A players run it for them, and then they'll use that time to start growing their new business. The other option is obviously selling your agency. So you might want to get bought out by a bigger agency. Just make sure if you do want to go down the exit route, you understand how those acquisitions work, because a lot of the time, even though it'll sound sexy up front, what will happen is you'll get a very small amount of cash, and then most of the money will come 3 years down the line once you hit certain targets. Option 3 is you just want to keep running your agency and maybe run it more as a sort of lifestyle business. This has been my roadmap for scaling agencies to 0 to 100K a month. I hope it helped. And if you enjoyed this content, feel free to subscribe, and I'll see you soon.